Chapter 1, Hong Kong, Registry Office. Lorelei Ashton pulled 3 marriage certificates from her bag and placed them before the registrar. "Hello, I'm applying for a compulsory divorce." From 3 people. The registrar across the desk looked up, her expression incredulous. "Excuse me," from 3 people. How could you possibly be married to 3 men at the same time? But when she took the certificates and saw the names of the husbands printed inside, the shock on her face instantly morphed into understanding. Ah, it's them. The 3 men at the absolute pinnacle of Hong Kong society. Their wealth and power were enough to turn the entire city upside down. Their insistence on simultaneously marrying the same woman 3 years ago had caused a city-wide sensation. The 3 tycoons wielded such immense power that even explicit laws couldn't constrain them. The city was in an uproar. Countless socialites and heiresses gossiped endlessly, green with envy. After all, landing even one man of such caliber was a stroke of lifetime luck, let alone possessing all 3 concurrently. It was just baffling that she would be the one initiating a compulsory divorce. The registrar swallowed her myriad questions and silently began processing the application. Once finished, she handed the documents back to Lorelei. "Your application has been registered successfully. The process should be finalized in the next few days. Please wait patiently." Lorelei nodded softly, tucking the papers back into her bag. She had barely stepped out of the registry office doors when 3 messages arrived in quick succession. "Harrison Sterling, the staff said you weren't home. Where did you go?" "Julian Vance, Lorelei, who gave you permission to run around." "Sebastian Croft, be here within half an hour." The last message included a location pin and a private room number at an exclusive club. Lorelei lowered her gaze, staring at the messages for a long moment before hailing a cab to the Sovereign Club. As she reached the private room, voices drifted out. "Harrison, Julian, Sebastian, married 3 years, and none of you can bear to be apart from Lorelei, even bringing her to a gathering like this. Have you actually fallen for her?" The 3 men's brows furrowed, their expressions shifting subtly. Then, Harrison Sterling's cool voice cut through the air. "Fallen for her? In my eyes, she's no different from my household staff. Would you fall for your maid?" Beside him, Julian Vance's lips curved into a half-smile. "Isn't it common knowledge in our circle who we really care about?" Sebastian Croft raised an eyebrow. "Who would fall for a substitute?" Their words were met with a roar of laughter from the others in the room. Only Lorelei stood outside the door, listening quietly. That's right. Who would fall for a substitute? She was merely a stand-in they'd found to remember Serafina Thorne. If Serafina hadn't gone abroad, they wouldn't have given her a second glance. Everyone in Hong Kong knew that Serafina Thorne, the city's top socialite, was the idealized first love of the 3 tycoons. She had grown up with them, but just as they were about to confess their feelings, she suddenly left the country. Overnight, these 3 men who could command storms in Hong Kong tasted the bitterness of unrequited love. It was then that Lorelei, bearing a striking resemblance to Serafina, appeared. They immediately began vying for her. None were willing to let go of the face so similar to Serafina's, using their power to fight tooth and nail. Finally, they compromised. All 3 would possess her. After obtaining 3 marriage certificates, her Mondays and Tuesdays belonged to Harrison Sterling, Wednesdays and Thursdays to Julian Vance, Fridays and Saturdays to Sebastian Croft, and Sundays were shared amongst them. Amidst the mocking laughter, Lorelei's expression remained impassive as she pushed the door open and walked in. The moment she entered, the chatter abruptly ceased. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft sat prominently on the central sofa, leaning back slightly, legs crossed casually, observing her entrance with a scrutinizing gaze. "Come here," Harrison Sterling gestured first, his tone leaving no room for refusal. The others watched with keen interest, anticipating the drama. Sebastian Croft then pointed to the dozens of glasses of liquor on the table, his voice indifferent. "Drink all of these." She couldn't handle alcohol. All 3 of them knew that. Yet, as she paled and forced down glass after glass, not a single person spoke up for her. By the time she finished the last drop, her stomach felt like it was on fire, the discomfort intense. Julian Vance looked up, watching her clutch her chest and stumble aside. A flicker of pity crossed his eyes, quickly replaced by indifference. "It's just a bit of alcohol. Stop putting on an act, you won't die." "Come here." Can't you see my ashtray is full?" He lounged casually on the sofa, a cigar held between his long fingers, his handsome features appearing even more captivating under the dim bar lights. Lorelei coughed a few times before moving towards him. Just as she reached for the ashtray on the table, he stopped her coldly. "Who told you to empty it? Hold out your hand." He actually wanted her to use her hand as his ashtray. Lorelei paused, her gaze fixed on the mole near the corner of his eye. In the end, she said nothing, extending her cupped hands towards him. The burning ash landed on her palm, the searing pain causing a momentary lapse in her focus. Suddenly, a pair of hands grasped her shoulders, pulling her away forcefully. Sebastian Croft frowned, taking a handkerchief from his pocket and rubbing her palm vigorously. "Who allowed you to do such things with this face?" He was solely focused on cleaning her hand, using considerable force. Lorelei instinctively furrowed her brow. "It hurts." Sebastian Croft abruptly stopped, then shoved her away forcefully. "Who told you to speak? Don't you know your voice sounds nothing like Rainey's?" Already dizzy from the alcohol, the forceful push sent her stumbling backward, her back crashing against the coffee table. Pain drained the color from her face. The onlookers continued to watch the spectacle with amusement. Someone even deliberately provoked her. "Lorelei, out of the three of them, who do you like the most?" Everyone waited for her answer. She lifted her head, about to speak, when Harrison Sterling's assistant suddenly knocked and rushed in. "Mr. Sterling, the piano Miss Thorne always wanted has surfaced at the Sotheby's auction." At these words, Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft simultaneously rose to their feet, heading swiftly towards the door. It seemed all three were determined to acquire that piano. Seeing the main players leave, the crowd lost interest, grabbing their coats and departing. Watching their retreating figures, Lorelei finally managed a faint smile, silently answering the earlier question. "Out of the three of them, I love none." After all, as they themselves said, who would fall for a substitute? They were substitutes too, substitutes she had found to replace her deceased lover. If it weren't for the features on their faces that resembled Aaron Harrison Sterling's eyes were like his, Julian Vance had a mole near his eye just like him, Sebastian Croft's lips resembled his. Why else would she have endured being by their side for 3 long years? But recently, in a facial recognition database, she had discovered someone who looked even more like Aaron. She finally no longer needed to compromise, searching for those faint traces of Aaron in these 3 different men. That was why she went to the registry office to file for a compulsory divorce solely to find the man who looked more like Aaron. Chapter 2. The next day was Monday. According to the agreement, this day belonged exclusively to Harrison Sterling. On this day, Julian Vance and Sebastian Croft would tactfully leave the villa, granting the 2 of them time alone. When Lorelei came downstairs after freshening up, only Harrison Sterling was in the living room. Rested well? He was dressed in casual loungewear today, leaning relaxedly against the sofa. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a glow on him that further accentuated his cool, extraordinary aura. Like this, his eyes bore an even stronger resemblance to Aaron's. Except her Aaron would never look at her with such cold indifference. Lorelei slowly descended the stairs and nodded lightly. Before she could sit down, Harrison Sterling approached, sweeping her up into his arms bridal style. "Since you're rested, it's time to get to work." She was tossed onto his bed, the air filled with the faint scent of his cologne. Soon, their clothes were carelessly discarded. His movements were always forceful, almost as if he wanted to possess her completely. Among the 3, he was the most possessive of her body, because what he adored most was Seraphina Thorne's slender waist. He had fallen for Seraphina after seeing her dance at a school celebration. After she went abroad, he vented all his desires onto Lorelei. Lorelei felt the man's invasive movements, but her mind kept replaying the image from the database, the face strikingly similar to Aaron's. Previously, the person whose eyes most resembled Aaron's was Harrison Sterling. So, whenever they were in bed, she would gaze deeply into his eyes. But the eyes she had seen a few days ago resembled Aaron's even more. Not just the eyes, but the nose, the mouth. It was like they were carved from the same mold. Now, her heart had already flown elsewhere. She had no inclination to appease Harrison Sterling anymore. Sensing her distraction, Harrison Sterling suddenly intensified his movements, forcing her eyes back to his. "Who are you thinking about? Julian Vance or Sebastian Croft?" She couldn't help but let out a soft moan, instinctively wrapping her arms around his neck. "No one. I wasn't thinking about anything." Harrison Sterling snorted coldly, thrusting into her harshly again. "You didn't answer last night's question. Out of the three of us, who do you like the most?" Lorelei smiled faintly, offering a perfunctory reply, "You, of course." Harrison Sterling's expression remained cold. "It better be. If I find out you're closer to them, you won't be leaving this bed for the next week." Lorelei didn't understand the source of Harrison Sterling's possessiveness. He clearly humiliated her at gatherings, acting as if being close to her was degrading. Yet, because of her brief moment of distraction, she hadn't left the bed for 2 whole days. He possessed her constantly, anytime, anywhere. Even meals were brought up by the staff, and he fed her himself. His stamina was terrifyingly abundant. In the end, Lorelei couldn't bear it anymore, crying and begging for mercy before Harrison Sterling finally relented. Watching him head to the bathroom, Lorelei staggered out of bed. She couldn't handle 2 days of relentless activity. As she got out of bed, she wasn't careful and accidentally knocked over a cup from the bedside table. The loud crash stunned Lorelei. The next second, a forceful presence whipped past her, shoving her violently to the floor. Lorelei, she saw it clearly now, the cup was a gift from Serafina Thorne from years ago, before she went abroad. No wonder he was so furious. Chapter 3, just as she expected, the man who had been intimately entangled with her moments ago instantly wore a different mask. His ink-black eyes glinted with a cold light, like sharp daggers aimed fiercely at her. If looks could kill, she would already be riddled with wounds. "Get out, go kneel outside, don't get up without my command." She had barely finished dressing when the maids roughly dragged her outside, forcing her to kneel powerlessly on the ground. The heavens offered no mercy. Less than half an hour after she started kneeling, a torrential downpour began. Fat raindrops pelted her face, stinging painfully. She struggled to keep herself upright, but her head grew heavier and heavier. It was late autumn now, each rain bringing a deeper chill. Kneeling in the downpour, Lorelei shivered uncontrollably, her entire body trembling from the cold. After an unknown amount of time, she finally couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed, unconscious. When she woke again, it was Wednesday morning. After kneeling all night, she was now burning with a high fever. But today, she belonged to Julian Vance. Before she was fully conscious, Julian Vance pulled her out of bed. "Get up now. Same routine. Change into the dress and dance for me." Whenever it was Julian Vance's turn, he would make her wear Serafina Thorne's dress and dance for him day and night. He loved watching Serafina dance. So, after finding Lorelei as a substitute, the first thing he did was hire a dance instructor to teach her the dance Serafina performed best. For 3 years, he never tired of it. Lorelei felt weak all over from the fever, but still forced herself to take off her clothes and change into the dance dress. But the moment her clothes came off, Julian Vance's expression turned extremely ugly. He lunged forward, grabbing her hand, his gaze fixed on the love bites covering her body. His voice was ice cold. "You too, in bed for 2 days?" Her vision was blurry, and she didn't care much, just nodding weakly. Julian Vance's hands clenched into fists, veins bulging on his forehead. He ground his teeth and after a long pause, spat out word by word, "Fine, very good. Go dance. Don't stop until I say so." She didn't know what had angered him this time. Usually she could manage, but having just knelt in the rain all night, she really couldn't cope. As the music started, she rose onto her toes again and again, leaping and landing. Her head grew heavier, her vision blurrier. Finally, after a pirouette, she couldn't support herself, crashed into a table, and collapsed onto the floor. When she fell, a cup was knocked over too. Shards of broken glass scattered everywhere, and fragments inevitably pierced Lorelei's palm. Julian Vance rushed over anxiously, pulling her up from the floor, but his worried gaze landed solely on her dress. "Lorelei, I think you're tired of living. Who told you to dirty Rainey's dress?" Blood dripped from her palm, but he didn't even glance at it. "Get that dress off." Now, Lorelei helplessly wrapped her hand in a tissue and pulled the dress off. Her body was also injured, but Julian Vance still didn't look, just cradled the dress, distressed beyond measure. "It's torn here by the glass. Call the tailor immediately. No matter the cost, this dress must be restored." After she had completely removed the dress, he took it and left in a hurry. Lorelei returned to her room, took out the first aid kit from the drawer herself, and carefully applied medicine to her wounds. It's okay, just endure a little longer. Soon, she would have nothing more to do with these men. Soon, she would meet the person who looked even more like Aaron. Chapter 4, Friday and Saturday were her days belonging to Sebastian Croft. Of the three men, he actually resembled Aaron the most. Whenever his thin lips pressed together slightly, it made her drift off countless times, momentarily thinking her Aaron had returned. Therefore, her tolerance for Sebastian Croft was the highest. And unlike the other two, he only made her do one thing repeatedly: cook noodles for him. When he was young, his parents divorced and no one cared about him. It was Serafina Thorne who cooked him a bowl of noodles on his birthday. From then on, he regarded her as the indelible, idealized love in his heart. He constantly yearned for the taste of those noodles, so he tirelessly made Lorelei cook them again and again. But no matter how many times she tried, she could never meet his standards. This time, because she was injured, the noodles tasted vastly different from before. Sebastian Croft took one bite, and his face changed. He slammed the bowl down forcefully, his face cold, his deep eyes flashing with a forbidding light that made one shrink back. "You've been learning for so long, why can't you get it right?" The scalding bowl hit her, instantly leaving a large red mark on the back of her hand. She cried out softly. Only then did Sebastian Croft notice the injury on her hand. He rushed forward frantically, grabbing her hand. "You're hurt. Who did this?" Lorelei bit her lip, remaining silent. Seeing her quietness, he grew more anxious, examining her body. When he saw the wounds and love bites, his expression darkened further. "They did this. You belong to me, what right do they have to touch you?" He had always been very protective of her body, especially her face. Because in his heart, Serafina Thorne was inviolable. That's why he got angry when she humbly served as Julian Vance's ashtray, and even angrier now that she was injured. With that, he grabbed her hand and prepared to confront Harrison Sterling and Julian Vance. They went out, got in the car, and asked his assistant, only to find out the other two had gone to Jasper Villa. Sebastian Croft frowned slightly, muttering to himself, "What are those two doing there?" Without thinking further, he floored the accelerator, pushing the car to 120 mph, racing all the way to Jasper Villa. The car stopped in the parking lot. From a distance, they saw Harrison Sterling's Maybach and Julian Vance's Bentley. The entrance to the villa was adorned with countless flowers, clearly indicating a very grand banquet. Normally, Harrison Sterling and Julian Vance rarely attended banquets. What kind of heavyweight figure was hosting this event to be able to invite these two titans? Looking at the pink roses and the countless pink balloons dancing in the air, Lorelei suddenly had a premonition. Evidently, Sebastian Croft beside her also realized something. He instructed Lorelei not to wander off, to wait right there for him, then strode towards the main entrance himself. Lorelei sighed, intending to return to the car to rest, when a vaguely familiar voice sounded behind her. "Lorelei, is that really you?" She turned in surprise, meeting the probing gaze of the newcomer. It was Aaron's university classmate, Lawrence Finch, a close friend of his. Seeing her state, Lawrence Finch shook his head sympathetically, unable to resist advising her. "Lorelei, Aaron passed away several years ago. You need to move on." Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft are not people to be trifled with. If they find out you're using them as substitutes, they won't let you off easily. At that exact moment, the voices of the three men echoed in unison from behind her. What substitute? Chapter 5. Hearing their voices, Lorelei quickly shot Lawrence a warning glance, then turned around calmly, smiling at the three men. "What substitute? Just people mocking me, this substitute." They were about to press further when Serafina Thorne slowly appeared before her. She wore a custom-made gold form-fitting gown, her figure graceful, her makeup exquisite. Every gesture exuded the air of a high society heiress. Walking behind the three men, her presence wasn't overshadowed in the slightest. "What are you chatting about?" Lorelei hadn't expected Serafina Thorne to return at this time. Before approaching the three men, Lorelei had researched her, but this was the first time seeing her in person. She could perhaps understand why the three men were so obsessed with her. One shouldn't meet someone too stunning when young, otherwise, everyone else afterward seems inferior. That saying perfectly applied to them. Seeing her standing outside, Serafina Thorne greeted her proactively. "Is this lady a friend of yours? Would you like to come in and join us?" Before Lorelei could speak, the three men refused in unison. "No need, just an irrelevant person." With that, the three turned and entered first, leaving her and Seraphina Thorne facing each other. She knew the three didn't want her interrupting their precious reunion time, so she tactfully excused herself. Walking out of the parking lot, she remembered she had come in Sebastian Croft's car. Now she had no vehicle, and this place was remote. Hailing a cab was impossible. She had no choice but to brace herself and start walking. Jasper Villa was situated on a mountaintop, so the entire path was downhill. Wearing high heels, every step was exceptionally difficult. If only Aaron were here. He would definitely carry her down the mountain. No, if Aaron were here, he would never have left her alone in the first place. Lorelei decided to take off her shoes and walk barefoot down the mountain. By the time she returned to the villa, her heels were covered in blisters, and the soles of her feet had several cuts from walking barefoot on the gravel road. No one cared about her except herself, and she hadn't expected anything from them anyway. She cleaned and bandaged her own wounds. Only by taking care of her body could she meet the face that resembled Aaron even more. Over the next few days, Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft did not return to the villa. She only occasionally heard news about them from the maids. "Did you hear? Miss Thorne is back these days. The three young masters are busy spending time with her. Of course, I know the whole of Hong Kong is buzzing about it. It's all over the news. Yeah, I heard Mr. Sterling spent a fortune, bought an entire island just for her vacations. Mr. Vance hired a famous designer to create a globally unique dance dress for her. And Mr. Croft donated $50 million to her most respected piano academy in her name. Her photo is hanging in the academy now." At this point, the two maids deliberately lowered their voices. "Tell me, isn't Our Lady of the House here rather pitiful?" the other retorted dismissively. "Oh, please, what Lady of the House? Everyone knows she was just Miss Thorne's substitute. Now that Miss Thorne is back, what's left for her? Mark my words, in a few days, she'll be kicked out." Lorelei paid no mind to the maid's gossip. After all, her own plan was to leave within these few days anyway. Counting the days since registering the divorce, it should be finalized any day now. Once she got the divorce certificate, she would leave freely and happily. With this thought, she decisively took out her suitcase and began packing. Just as she had nearly finished packing, the bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. Chapter 6, Lorelei whipped her head around, meeting several pairs of somewhat surprised eyes. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft had returned, and they had brought Seraphina Thorne with them. Seeing her packing, their expressions suddenly changed. "What are you packing for?" For some reason, she seemed to detect a hint of panic in their voices. Just as she was about to explain, Seraphina Thorne spoke first. "Is it because you were a LL Chinese letter accompanying me these past few days, so Miss Ashton got upset?" She then looked at the three men reproachfully. "It's all your fault. Why did you have to say she was an irrelevant person in the first place? If I had known her relationship with you, I would have definitely invited her to stay and join us that day." The three men remained silent, but the look in their eyes as they gazed at Seraphina was indulgent. Only Seraphina Thorne could speak to them like this. If it were anyone else, the consequences would be unimaginable. Seraphina took a box from her bag and handed it to Lorelei, her tone softening slightly. "Miss Ashton, this is a gift I prepared for you. Because I just returned, they've been spending time with me these past few days. Please don't mind. We grew up together, the four of us. I'd never seen them interested in any girl for all these years. If it weren't for you, I might have thought they preferred men. I didn't expect the type of girl they like to be similar. You really are beautiful. That must be why they did something as absurd as fighting to marry you." Lorelei looked at Seraphina Thorne impassively, wondering what lay hidden behind her smile. Although none of the three had confessed to Seraphina back then, the rumors in their circle were rampant. Could she truly not know they liked her? Even if she hadn't known before, seeing Lorelei's face, which bore a 7/10 resemblance to her own, she must have understood by now. So Lorelei couldn't comprehend Seraphina's motives. Seraphina continued to joke, her eyes appearing remarkably innocent. "But honestly, Miss Ashton, you suit them very well." The three men's faces instantly turned cold, clearly displeased that Serafina was pairing them with Lorelei. Yet ultimately, they couldn't bring themselves to be angry with Serafina, merely shooting Lorelei a cold glance. That evening, the group stayed at the villa for dinner. Serafina Thorne personally cooked several dishes. Lorelei had never seen the three men smile with such warmth in their eyes, even though several dishes on the table weren't their favorites. Serafina personally served them food. Perhaps because she had been abroad too long, she seemed to have completely forgotten their tastes. She gave Harrison sterling fish, which he never ate, served Julian Vance celery, which he detested, and gave Sebastian Croft cashew shrimp, to which he was allergic. If it had been Lorelei, the three would have long since stormed away from the table. But because it was Serafina Thorne, they merely paused slightly before unhesitatingly putting the food she served them into their mouths. After dinner, they were supposed to send Serafina home, but a sudden heavy rain made driving unsafe. Concerned about her traveling late, they decided to let her stay the night at the villa. There were plenty of guest rooms in the villa, cleaned daily by the staff. But because it was Serafina who would be staying, the three men were uneasy and insisted on arranging the room themselves. Lorelei returned to her room alone. Unexpectedly, Serafina Thorne followed her. The two weren't familiar, so there wasn't much to talk about. Serafina seemed very interested in the things in Lorelei's room, looking here and touching there. Suddenly, her gaze was drawn to a dream catcher hanging on the wall. Just as she reached out to take it down, Lorelei immediately stopped her. "Miss Thorne, you can touch anything else but not this." Serafina paused. She glanced back at Lorelei, a provocative smile playing on her lips. The next second, she took the dream catcher down and slammed it onto the floor. Chapter 7. This dream catcher was a gift from Aaron. It was the only memento he left her after his death. Lorelei felt her mind go blank. A surge of fury rushed through her, making her lose all reason. She lunged forward and slapped Serafina hard across the face. Right on cue, the three men appeared, witnessing the exact moment Lorelei struck Serafina. Instantly, they rushed forward, pulling Serafina protectively behind them. Harrison Sterling's eyes were like daggers, filled with a hatred so intense it seemed he wanted to tear her apart. Lorelei Julian Vance shoved her away forcefully. "Are you insane?" Sebastian Croft's expression was icy. "What gives you the right? How dare you lay a hand on Rainey? Men, lock her in the confinement room." At his command, bodyguards immediately entered, dragging her towards the dark room without allowing any argument. Ever since Aaron's death, she had suffered from severe claustrophobia. Just hearing about being locked in a dark room made her tremble uncontrollably. No! For years, no matter how cruelly they treated her, she had never begged for mercy. This was the first time. Harrison Sterling froze momentarily. But upon seeing Serafina's swollen cheek, that flicker of pity instantly vanished. Drag her away. As the door shut, the last sliver of light disappeared. In the boundless darkness, Lorelei curled up in a corner, shaking uncontrollably. Harrison Sterling let me out, Julian Vance, Sebastian Croft. No matter how she screamed, no one answered. The darkness felt like an invisible hand, squeezing her throat, suffocating her. Could it be she would die like this? She cried and screamed all night, but no one came to rescue her. Finally, she exhausted her last bit of strength and slowly collapsed onto the floor. In the moment before losing consciousness, she thought she saw the face she longed for day and night. "Aaron!" The door opened, and the blinding light stung her eyes. She weakly opened her eyes, only to see the furious faces of Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft. "Whose name were you calling?" Lorelei closed her eyes, too weak to answer. Harrison Sterling snorted coldly, warning, "Don't try playing hard to get, deliberately calling another man's name to attract our attention." "Lorelei, Rainey is our bottom line. If you dare touch her again, it won't be as simple as being locked in the confinement room next time." Lorelei looked at the three men, struggled to her feet, and leaned against the wall as she walked out. The phone in her pocket vibrated as it picked up a signal. She took out her phone, glanced at it, and put it back. It was a notification message from the registry office, informing her that the compulsory divorce procedure was nearly complete and instructing her to come collect the divorce certificate in 3 days. Seeing her silence, the three men behind her warned again, "Don't even think about hurting Rainey ever again." Lorelei smiled faintly. There won't be a next time. Soon, she would be leaving. Julian Vance asked impatiently, "What did you say?" She shook her head and walked away without looking back. Chapter 8, 3 days left on the countdown. Serafina Thorne hosted a grand exhibition of her work, inviting Lorelei along with Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft. In these final days, Lorelei didn't want any more trouble and had no desire to join the event. But they gave her no right to refuse, practically ordering her attendance. Lorelei, don't spoil the mood. Rainey didn't hold a grudge against you, yet you're the one putting on airs. If you can't make it, we'll have the bodyguards tie you up and bring you. Choose yourself. Since it had come to this, she had no choice but to go. She anticipated this invitation would be a setup, so she had hidden a pinhole camera in her necklace beforehand. Upon arriving at the exhibition hall, the three men simultaneously approached Serafina. Rainey, why are you wearing so little? Don't catch a cold. Your designs are very special. Did you like the flowers we sent? If you need any help, don't hesitate to ask, understand? Behind them, Lorelei watched them fuss over Serafina without saying a word. She simply took out her phone and booked a flight for 3 days later. What are you doing? Sebastian Croft suddenly appeared beside her, startling her slightly. But she calmly exited the flight booking page, hid her phone, and looked at him blandly. Nothing. Sebastian Croft frowned, sensing something was amiss, but his attention was primarily on Serafina, so he didn't press further. Midway through, Serafina indeed found her. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft had been conveniently sent away, so now, Serafina didn't need to pretend in front of her. She got straight to the point. I didn't expect you to still hold some weight in their hearts. You slapped me, and they merely locked you in the confinement room for a night. Lorelei looked up. So you knew they liked you? Serafina shrugged nonchalantly. Of course, they made it so obvious, how could I not know? Lorelei looked at her. If you knew, then why did you go abroad with another man back then? I can see you're not entirely indifferent to the three of them. Serafina neither confirmed nor denied. All three of them are exceptional men. If it were you, could you choose? Choosing one means giving up the other too. Since that's the case, why should I give up an entire forest for a single tree? It's better to let the whole forest belong to me. I just didn't expect you to suddenly appear. Do you know how much they used to love me? They would do anything for me. Even if I wanted the stars from the sky, they would find a way to pluck them for me. But, during my time abroad, they seemed to change. They transferred the affection they had for me onto you. She curved her lips. So I came back. Lorelei, you can't compete with me. Lorelei shook her head. She had never intended to compete with her. Wait 3 more days, I will yield my place to you. Serafina frowned. What do you mean? Why 3 days? Lorelei didn't want to explain and was about to leave when Serafina suddenly grabbed her. Who do you think you are, daring to compete with me? I'll show you the consequences of trying to take what's mine. With that, she seemed to go berserk, smashing the artworks in the room pieces intended for the exhibition to smithereens. The commotion quickly attracted people from outside who intended to view the exhibition, including Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft. Seeing the chaotic mess in the hall, everyone's gaze fell upon Serafina and Lorelei. Serafina abruptly changed her demeanor, tears welling in her eyes as she threw herself at the 3 men. Harrison, Julian, Sebastian, Miss Ashton suddenly smashed all my work. I know you're all married, and it was wrong of me to be so close to you, but no matter how angry she is, she shouldn't have destroyed my creations. This is my life's work. If Miss Ashton really can't accept me, then I'm willing to keep my distance from you. Hearing the words, keep my distance, the 3 men suddenly panicked. Harrison Sterling angrily stepped forward, grabbing her throat. Lorelei, did you take our words as empty threats? Her face turned crimson, and she struggled with all her might to break free. She gasped for breath several times, then held up the necklace from around her neck. I didn't do it. Serafina staged this herself and smashed everything. There's a camera here. It can prove my innocence. Chapter 9, the entire hall erupted in an uproar. Serafina clearly hadn't expected this move, and her face instantly changed. The eyes of Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft were filled with complex emotions. They looked toward Serafina, but unexpectedly, sensing their slightly suspicious gazes, her tears began to fall like broken strands of pearls, crying even more intensely. She bit her lip, looking incredibly pitiful. It wasn't me. Do you believe me, or do you believe her? Without a moment's hesitation, the 3 men resolutely looked back at Lorelei. "We believe you then." They redirected their anger towards Lorelei. "Enough, I warned you not to provoke Rainey. Are you deaf?" Julian Vance's face was dark as he stepped forward, violently yanking the necklace from her neck and throwing it onto the floor in disgust. "No matter how many tricks you pull, we won't believe you." Sebastian Croft waved his hand impassively, and bodyguards quickly rushed forward. "Since she refuses to learn her lesson, let her taste some real pain today." "Beat her." Lorelei was forced to kneel on the ground. She wanted to explain, but the three men gave her no chance. Looking at their cold expressions, she completely gave up trying to argue. She knew that no matter what she said, they wouldn't believe her. Between her and Serafina Thorne, they would always choose Serafina. The punishment they spoke of was 33 vicious lashes with a whip, administered in front of everyone. Hundreds of guests were present, witnessing her humiliation and agony. With each heavy lash that struck her back, she bit her lip tightly until she tasted blood. After 33 lashes, she collapsed powerlessly onto the ground, lacking even the strength to cry out in pain. Her dress was torn, nearly soaked crimson with blood. Harrison Sterling's stern face showed a hint of pity. Just as he was about to step forward and help her up, Serafina suddenly slumped onto his shoulder from behind. "Harrison, Julian, Sebastian, my head hurts so much." All their attention immediately shifted to Serafina. Without a second thought, they picked her up and rushed her to the hospital, none of them looking back even once at Lorelei lying on the ground. The guests dispersed, silence fell, and not a single person cared about her. Covered in blood, she lay on the floor littered with debris for an entire night. The next day, she finally regained some strength, managed to pull herself up from the floor, and went to the hospital alone. Over the next 2 days, the three men did not return home. Actually, this place couldn't really be called their home. It was just a gilded cage where they collectively kept her. They owned countless villas and mansions. Now that Serafina Thorne was back, how could they possibly care about this place? But that was fine. It made things more convenient for her. The 3-day period was up. Her divorce proceedings were finalized. She just needed to collect the divorce certificate, and she could leave them completely. The moment she received the divorce certificate, Lorelei felt the sky had never looked so blue. She returned to the villa, pushed open the door, and was met by 3 coolly handsome faces tinged with displeasure. 3 different styles of cakes sat on the table. The room was decorated warmly and romantically. Seeing her appear, the 3 men stood up simultaneously. Harrison Sterling spoke first. "Where have you been? Don't you know today is our wedding anniversary?" Julian Vance followed closely. "Do you have any idea how long we've been looking for you?" Sebastian Croft glanced at her, then pressed. "Are you still angry about that incident? That was your fault to begin with. Rainey didn't hold it against you, yet you're the one holding a grudge." Lorelei took a deep breath, her voice icy. "The evidence was right there, but you didn't believe it. I'll say it one last time. That incident was not my fault." The 3 men grew even angrier. "Who knows how you faked it? Rainey isn't that kind of person." She no longer had the energy to argue. "Believe whatever you want." Harrison Sterling stepped forward angrily, grabbing her hand and pulling her into his embrace, his tone accusatory. "What's this attitude? Do you know how many things I pushed aside just to come back and celebrate our anniversary with you?" Julian Vance intercepted him, trying to pull her behind him. "She's mine. Today, she should be celebrating with me." Sebastian Croft laughed coldly. "Today is Friday. The person she should be with is me." The 3 argued incessantly, but at the same moment, their phones rang simultaneously. The atmosphere instantly froze. All 3 let go of her and answered their phones. "Don't worry, I'll be right there." "Where is she?" "Tell her to wait for me." It was Serafina Thorne's friends calling. It wasn't clear what had happened to her, only that they urgently needed the 3 men to come over. And just like always, all 3 simultaneously chose Serafina Thorne again. "Wait for us at home. We'll come back and celebrate the anniversary with you after we handle this." Lorelei wasn't surprised by this outcome. She watched them hurry out the door and called their names one last time. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, Sebastian Croft. The 3 men stopped and turned around abruptly. "What is it?" She looked at their 3 exquisitely carved faces, gave one final smile. "Nothing." Surprise flickered in their eyes. They seemed about to say something, but in the end, said nothing and quickly disappeared behind the door. Lorelei watched their retreating backs, only relief in her eyes. These past few years, we each took what we needed. Neither owes the other anything. I don't blame you, so don't blame me. From now on, goodbye forever. She took the divorce certificates she received today from her bag and placed one in front of each cake. Then, she placed the necklace embedded with the camera on the table. Finally, she made a phone call. "Hello, could you please help me erase my identity records?" After she left, Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft would probably realize they'd been played, discover she had used them as substitutes too. She had no energy to imagine their expressions upon learning the truth. But only by ensuring they could never find her could she eliminate future troubles. After hanging up, feeling a profound sense of release, she picked up her luggage, strode towards the door, and walked away without a backward glance. Chapter 10, the three men sped through red lights. Frantic because they received a call saying Serafina Thorne had fainted. Their hearts pounded with anxiety, cutting the usual hour-long drive nearly in half. However, as they rushed into the private room, they heard voices from within. It was Serafina's group of friends. "Rainey, are you sure it's okay to trick them like this? They seem genuinely devoted to you." Serafina Thorne smirked. "If I don't, how else can I emphasize my importance? I heard today is their wedding anniversary with Lorelei. I deliberately chose this time to lure them over. As long as they come, that Lorelei will surely have to scram. Well, since you know Harrison, Julian, and Sebastian all like you, who do you plan to choose after Lorelei leaves?" The smile in Serafina's eyes deepened. "Choose? I won't choose any of them. They are the three titans of Hong Kong, desired by countless people, yet I have them all dangling. Isn't that interesting? As long as I don't choose, I can enjoy triple the affection. What you can't have is always the best. Unlike that Lorelei who's been so earnest with them all these years. Has she gotten any favors?" The group praised her effusively. "Impressive, Rainey. You really are something." The atmosphere inside the room was lively, but no one noticed the three men standing outside the door, their faces already grim. They had always regarded Serafina Thorne as their untouchable moonlight ideal. Initially, they thought she didn't know they liked her, so they silently hid their feelings, guarding her from afar, afraid of scaring her. Later, when they finally couldn't resist confessing, Serafina went abroad. For 3 whole years, they suffered from unrequited love, their obsession deepening. That's why they found Lorelei. But now they heard that Serafina had known all along, had been playing games with them. It turned out their idealized love wasn't so perfect after all. Harrison Sterling's hand gripped the doorframe tightly, his knuckles white. He had never imagined the person he cherished for years would toy with his emotions so carelessly. Julian Vance's face was terrifyingly dark. His usually deep, captivating eyes now held only the self-mockery of betrayal. He couldn't fathom how his deep affection had become Serafina's amusement. Sebastian Croft clenched his fists, his body trembling slightly. Usually calm and composed, even he couldn't suppress the turmoil within. The three men exchanged glances, seeing profound remorse in each other's eyes. But strangely, they felt no anger. For some reason, despite being deceived by the one they loved, they should have been furious. Yet, all they felt now was regret. Regret? Why, on such an important day as their wedding anniversary, had they abandoned Lorelei to rush here? Their hearts were a mix of complex emotions. Involuntarily, Lorelei's image filled their minds. The woman who always silently endured their cruelty, never uttering a word of complaint. Harrison Sterling remembered the countless times Lorelei had gazed at him in bed with eyes full of love, a sharp pain piercing his heart. Julian Vance recalled Lorelei's exhausted expression as she danced for him, his heart filled with guilt. Sebastian Croft remembered Lorelei's focused look as she cooked noodles, overcome with remorse. It seemed that, somewhere along the line, Lorelei had completely occupied their thoughts. So now, hearing Serafina's true intentions, it felt as if that last shred of obsession had finally been purged. They didn't understand what was happening to them, but at that moment, none of them pushed the door open. All three tacitly turned away. Then, they rushed back to their cars and sped towards the villa. This time, they drove even faster than when they had rushed to see Serafina. Finally arriving, all three breathed a sigh of relief, then scrambled to push open the front door, Chapter 11 to their utter shock. When the door opened, The person who should have been sitting there waiting for them was gone. Only a few items lay on the table. They rushed over, and their hearts instantly stopped. 3 divorce certificates. Divorce? They hadn't agreed. How could Lorelei divorce them unilaterally? Their minds roared. Harrison Sterling was the first to recover, snatching a certificate and flipping it open. He saw the words, compulsory divorce. Hong Kong law allowed women to apply for compulsory divorce. But once applied, she couldn't remarry for the next 10 years. Was she that desperate to leave them, willing to sacrifice her future happiness? They couldn't believe it. Just then, Julian Vance noticed the necklace lying beside the certificates. He picked it up and discovered a tiny camera inside. He quickly connected it to a device and played the recording. The footage showed the complete truth of what happened in the art studio that day. After watching, all 3 men turned deathly pale. Remembering Lorelei's expression that day, a sharp pain pierced their hearts. She hadn't lied. It truly was all staged by Serafina Thorne. They believed her now. This time, they believed her. But where was she? Grief consumed them, yet none spoke first, as if speaking would be admitting defeat, admitting that terrifying thought lurking in their hearts. Just then, the oldest maid in the house appeared, speaking softly. "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Vance, Mr. Croft, I personally saw Miss Ashton leave. May I speak with you for a moment? It's about Miss Ashton." The 3 recognized her as the maid closest to Lorelei in the villa. Because Lorelei served 3 masters, most maids looked down on her. Only this Mrs. Gable had maintained a decent relationship with her. Thinking Mrs. Gable knew Lorelei's whereabouts, they turned sharply. "Speak." Mrs. Gable looked at their eager eyes, sighed, and began recounting Lorelei's sacrifices over the years. "Miss Ashton has given her heart and soul to the 3 of you these past few years. She knew you liked Miss Thorne, so she never complained. Every time she cooked, she remembered each of your preferences, making your favorite dishes. To make you happy, she even learned to dance, persisting even when she wasn't feeling well. Whenever you were sick, she took meticulous care of you, staying by your side, never daring to leave for a moment. Once, Mr. Croft had a fever late at night, and she stayed by his bedside all night, constantly cooling his forehead with a towel. Another time, Mr. Sterling had stomach problems, so she specifically learned how to make nourishing soups, preparing them for you every day. Her kindness towards you, words cannot describe it. But you gentlemen never saw her efforts. You always hurt her." Listening to Mrs. Gable's words, the 3 men felt their hearts clench violently. Harrison Sterling frowned deeply, Lorelei's smile flashing in his mind. She had always silently given, offering him hot tea when he was tired, caring for him when he was sick. He remembered working late one night, and Lorelei quietly brought him supper, her warm smile giving him a fleeting sense of home. Julian Vance closed his eyes, recalling Lorelei dancing. Her movements were graceful, her gaze focused, every step infused with deep affection for him. He remembered being in a foul mood once, and Lorelei danced for him. Seeing her earnestness, the darkness in his heart instantly dissipated. Sebastian Croft clenched his fists, remembering Lorelei cooking noodles. She always prepared them so carefully, hoping to achieve the taste that would satisfy him. He remembered being unwell once, and Lorelei cooked him a bowl of noodles. The familiar taste conveyed her concern. The 3 realized that, unknowingly, they had grown accustomed to Lorelei's presence, to her gentleness and thoughtfulness. Their feelings for Serafina Thorne had long since been unconsciously replaced by Lorelei. At this moment, they finally admitted it simultaneously. Sometime long ago, they had fallen in love with Lorelei. No matter what, this time, they would not let her leave. The 3 men hastily stood up and quickly made a phone call. "Find the whereabouts of one person for me." Chapter 12, all 3 men desperately wanted to be the first to find Lorelei, but none succeeded. In the days that followed, they seemed utterly lost, their usual commanding presence in the business world completely vanished. Harrison Sterling shut himself in his office all day, staring blankly out the window, unable to focus on the piles of documents before him. He endlessly regretted his past coldness towards Lorelei, regretting not recognizing his own feelings sooner. His top executives had never seen the president like this, walking on eggshells, terrified of provoking their potentially explosive boss. Julian Vance drove aimlessly through the streets of Hong Kong, stopping for long periods at every place that held a memory of Lorelei, his eyes filled with reminiscence and pain. He remembered every glance, every movement as Lorelei danced for him her deep affection that he had carelessly trampled upon. He often parked his car late at night, sitting alone, gazing at the empty streets, his heart consumed by longing and guilt for Lorelei. Sebastian Croft frantically sifted through various data, trying to find any clue from Lorelei's past. He combed through her social media history, spending records, even contacting friends she hadn't spoken to in years, yet yielded nothing. He grew increasingly haggard, his eyes bloodshot, his former calm composure long gone. Though they despised each other, all three were now enveloped by the same pain and anxiety. To find Lorelei, they offered a staggering reward of 300 million USD. The news sent shockwaves through Hong Kong. Countless people were stirred into action, starting the search for Lorelei. A flood of tips, both real and fake, poured in. Harrison Sterling's private investigation team worked around the clock, meticulously verifying every lead, but most turned out to be fabricated lies designed to claim the reward money. Julian Vance personally followed up on every seemingly plausible clue, only to face disappointment time and time again. Sebastian Croft remained glued to his computer, eyes fixed on the screen, terrified of missing any information possibly related to Lorelei. Meanwhile, Serafina Thorne noticed the three men hadn't sought her out for a long time and were instead searching the world for Lorelei. Finally swallowing her pride, she went to find them. She dressed meticulously in a stunning pink gown, high heels clicking confidently as she entered the familiar villa. Upon entering, she saw Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft gathered in the living room, their expressions grave, the atmosphere suffocatingly tense. Seeing her arrive, they merely shot her a cold glance before retreating into their thoughts. None stood to greet her, treating her like an insignificant stranger. Serafina's heart tightened, but she forced a composed smile, pouting playfully. "Harrison, Julian, Sebastian, why have you all been ignoring me lately? My friends said I fainted that day, but you didn't come. Did I do something wrong?" Faced with Serafina's feigned innocence, the three men remained impassive. Harrison Sterling stated calmly, "Because we overheard everything you said outside the private room that day." His voice was soft, yet it struck Serafina's heart like a heavy hammer. Serafina's smile froze, a flicker of panic in her eyes. Still clutching at straws, she forced herself to remain calm. "You must have misheard. I fainted that day, what could I possibly have said?" Julian Vance stared at her intently, his voice cold. "Serafina, even now you intend to argue? We heard every single word you said clearly. You schemed to make us abandon Lorelei, playing with our emotions like a game." Sebastian Croft didn't even lift his head, his tone icy. "You said you kept us as backups, enjoying our love without choosing anyone, just finding it amusing. Do you know how much genuine affection we gave you over the years? And how much pain we inflicted on Lorelei because of you? We also saw the surveillance footage from the art studio that day. Did you really think you could hide everything?" Chapter 13, hearing the word surveillance, Serafina felt her mind buzz. Panic surged within her. She hastily tried to explain, "I was just momentarily obsessed. I was wrong. How about I choose one of you right now?" "I'll choose now," her eyes pleaded, her voice choked with tears, her former arrogance completely gone. Harrison Sterling scoffed, his eyes filled with derision. "Choose one? Serafina, do you think this is a game? Do you think we still care about your choice? Your past actions have thoroughly disappointed us." Julian Vance shook his head slightly, disgust evident on his face. "Stop the pretense. We've had enough of your manipulations. Do you think a few empty words can undo the harm you caused Lorelei?" Sebastian Croft frowned, speaking coldly. "You think choosing one solves the problem? It's too late. Besides, we don't love you anymore." Serafina stared in disbelief, her eyes wide, her voice shrill as she demanded, "You don't love me. Then who do you love?" Harrison Sterling took a deep breath, his gaze steady as he looked at her, enunciating each word clearly. "We love Lorelei. All this time, the one we truly loved was her." Julian Vance added, "We thought we loved you, obsessed with you, but we neglected Lorelei, who was always silently giving by our side. It was our stupidity that hurt her again and again." Sebastian Croft's expression softened slightly, his eyes filled with remorse. "By the time we realized our feelings, we had already inflicted too much irreparable damage on Lorelei. Now, we just want to find her and beg for her forgiveness." Hearing their words, Serafina found it utterly absurd, bursting into shrill laughter. Ha 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 ha, you say you love Lorelei? That woman who only knows how to wash clothes and cook like a maid. Have you all gone mad? Harrison Sterling's eyes flashed with anger. Serafina, shut your mouth. Lorelei's kindness, gentleness, and strength are things you can never compare to. Everything she did for us, we saw it and we remember it. Julian Vance added coldly. We were once blinded by your so-called idealized love image. But after everything, we understand that Lorelei is the one truly worth cherishing. What do you have left besides selfishness and constant scheming? Serafina trembled with rage, pointing at them, teeth gritted. Fine, very well, you will regret this. Sebastian Croft stepped forward, his gaze sharp as knives directed at Serafina, warning her, Serafina, you'd better not try anything foolish. If you dare harm Lorelei, I guarantee you will pay a painful price. Serafina bit her lip, tears welling, then turned and stormed out. Inside the room, the three men watched her retreating figure, their eyes darkening slightly. Knowing Serafina's personality, they worried she might do something drastic to Lorelei. The best solution was to bankrupt the Thorne family, leaving Serafina too preoccupied to harm Lorelei. Pooling the power of the Sterling, Vance, and Croft fortunes, the Thorne family was bankrupt within a single day. Learning about the company's downfall, Serafina rushed home frantically. The moment she stepped inside, she felt the suffocatingly oppressive atmosphere. Her mother, face stained with tears, eyes red and swollen, saw her and lunged forward, her voice choked with sobs and fury. Rainey, what have you done? You've ruined the Thorne family. Those three men. Each one is exceptional. If you had just held on to one of them, how could the family end up like this? Her father sat on the sofa, his face terrifyingly grim. He took a harsh drag from his cigarette, then stubbed it out violently in the ashtray. Standing up, he pointed at Serafina, trembling with rage. Tell me, why did you have to string them all along? Rejecting perfectly good prospects to play these ridiculous games. Now look, the Thorne family is bankrupt. Are you satisfied? Serafina's lips trembled. She wanted to argue, but any words felt pale and useless now. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably, her voice catching. I just wanted to enjoy their adoration. I thought everything was under my control. Her mother collapsed onto the floor in despair, wailing loudly. You thought, what good is saying that now? The Thorne family is finished, we're all finished. Her father looked at Serafina, his eyes filled with disappointment and resentment. You're too selfish, only thinking of your own pleasure, disregarding the fate of the entire Thorne family. Those three men, are any of them easy to provoke? Did you think you could manipulate them forever? Now they've joined forces to retaliate, and the Thorne family simply cannot withstand it. Serafina slowly sank to the floor, clutching her head, consumed by regret. She recalled her past actions, deceiving and hurting them constantly to satisfy her vanity, even trying to destroy their relationship with Lorelei. She had never imagined it would end like this. Chapter 14. Meanwhile, Lorelei had already landed in the capital city. After resting for just one day, she prepared herself and began the process of applying for the position of housekeeper at the Fairfax estate. The facial recognition database indicated that the man who looked strikingly like Aaron was Peregrine Perry Fairfax, the heir to the powerful Fairfax group based in the capital city. She had to get close to this Perry Fairfax, just as she had gotten close to Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft. Last night, she had a dream. She dreamt of her past with Aaron. They were childhood sweethearts, growing up together. At 16, the boy, red-eared and stumbling over his words, had confessed his love to her under the moonlight. Everyone around them said Aaron was head over heels for Lorelei, completely devoted to her. He had broken 2 ribs fighting for her, queued for hours to buy her bubble tea, and brewed brown sugar water for her during her period. Such a wonderful Aaron, an Aaron who loved her so much. Yet in a car accident protecting her, he had closed his eyes forever. At the funeral, she watched him being dressed in burial clothes, watched him being placed in the coffin, yet she didn't shed a single tear. Because she knew her Aaron wasn't truly dead. So, she searched the world for someone who looked like Aaron. Previously, she had found Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft. No matter how much torture she endured, as long as she could stay by their side, she accepted it gladly. But now, she had found an even closer resemblance. Leveraging the extensive experience gained from serving those 3 men over the years, Lorelei answered many questions fluently. Finally, she successfully interviewed for the housekeeper position and moved into the Fairfax estate. The grand residence was like a magnificent labyrinth, every corner showcasing the Fairfax family's wealth and prestige. She was assigned a room that, while not spacious, was exquisitely furnished. Pale blue wallpaper, a soft bed, and an antique desk offered her a sliver of comfort in this unfamiliar place. On her first day, Lorelei rose early, presenting herself impeccably. Her housekeeper uniform was crisp and well-fitting, her long hair tied back neatly, making her look particularly sharp. She moved through the vast house, familiarizing herself with the layout and function of each area, from the display room filled with rare porcelain to the library housing thousands of volumes, and the garden blooming with vibrant flowers. Each space left her secretly amazed. In the morning, she worked alongside other staff on routine cleaning. Lorelei was efficient, her eyes focused as she wiped down furniture, leaving no speck of dust behind. When it was time to prepare lunch, she went to the kitchen. Using her considerable cooking skills, she assisted the chef in preparing a sumptuous meal. However, for several days, she didn't see Perry Fairfax. She overheard other staff whispering that the Fairfax heir was extremely busy, often leaving early and returning late, sometimes not coming home for days. Lorelei felt a growing anxiety. She had traveled so far solely to get close to the face that looked so much like Aaron's. Until one day, while she was trimming hedges in the garden, she heard a maid whisper nearby, "Mr. Fairfax is back today." Lorelei's pruning shears paused, her heart instantly quickening. She swiftly tidied her appearance, returned the tools to their place, took a deep breath, and walked with seemingly steady but inwardly urgent steps towards the main entrance, ready to implement her long-planned seduction strategy. As she reached the entrance, Perry Fairfax's car slowly pulled in. Lorelei stood at the bottom of the steps, hands clasped before her, head slightly bowed, offering a perfectly measured smile. The car stopped, the door opened, and Perry's long legs emerged first, followed by his tall frame. He wore a custom-tailored black suit that fit perfectly, accentuating his broad shoulders and lean waist. His features were sharp and cool, his face sculpted, especially his eyes deep and piercing, as if they could see right through a person. This face, a 9/10 match to Aaron's, made Lorelei's heart lurch violently. Perry Fairfax looked up, his gaze sweeping over Lorelei with a hint of scrutiny, then walked straight into the villa. Lorelei quickly followed, step by step. As she crossed the threshold, she secretly clenched her fists, telling herself this was just the beginning. No matter what, she had to stay by his side, to find Aaron's shadow in him. Chapter 15. Lorelei spent the next few days racking her brains, trying every conceivable method to capture Perry Fairfax's attention. She meticulously prepared breakfasts, spending ages on presentation, attempting to win him over through food. She would strike elegant poses in hallways he passed through, pretending it was accidental. She played melancholic tunes on the piano in the garden, hoping the music would make him pause. However, Perry Fairfax remained consistently indifferent, unmoved by her various efforts. Frantic, Lorelei decided to deploy her ultimate move. Evening descended, casting soft light throughout the villa. Perry sat reading a financial magazine on the living room sofa, as usual. Lorelei changed into a flimsy slip dress, revealing her fair shoulders and delicate collarbones, the hem swaying gently as she moved. Carrying a glass of water, she deliberately walked towards Perry, feigned a slip, and spilled the entire glass onto him. The water soaked his shirt, clinging to his skin and outlining the firm muscles of his chest. Seeing this, Lorelei immediately let out a small cry, pretending to be flustered, and leaned down, intending to dab at him with the handkerchief in her hand. Just as her fingers were about to touch Perry's chest, he caught her wrist with uncanny precision, as if anticipating her move. Perry sighed softly, his deep eyes looking directly into Lorelei's, filled with a mix of helplessness and knowing understanding. He said slowly, "Lorelei, you don't need to do this." Panic seized Lorelei, the color draining instantly from her face. She tried to pull her hand back, but Perry held it tighter. Under his gaze, which felt like it could pierce her soul, she felt like a child whose tricks had been exposed, utterly defenseless. Just as Lorelei was about to speak, Perry released her hand and stood up. Looking down at her, His voice was calm yet brooked no argument. "Did you think the Fairfax family hires housekeepers without a thorough background check? These past few weeks, those three from Hong Kong have been searching for you frantically. Did you think I wouldn't know?" Lorelei's heart plummeted. The blood drained from her face. She never imagined Perry knew her background in such detail. She opened her mouth, but her throat felt incredibly dry. For a moment, she couldn't utter a word. Perry remained silent for a moment before finally speaking. "Lorelei, do I really look that much like your departed friend?" Lorelei snapped her head up. After a long pause, a tear slowly traced its way down her cheek. "Yes, very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Fairfax. It's been so long since I last saw him." Perry gazed at her, his eyes holding an all-seeing clarity. After a while, he asked, "Would you like to touch my face?" Lorelei froze, hardly believing her ears. Her eyes widened as she looked at Perry, as if confirming if he was serious. Perry's expression was calm, showing no hint of jest. Mr. Fairfax, you," Lorelei stammered, her cheeks flushing slightly, while her insides churned like a tumultuous sea. On one hand, the offer left her flustered. On the other, the longing for Aaron surged like a tidal wave. The face before her, so similar to Aaron's, made the temptation incredibly hard to resist. Perry took a small step closer to Lorelei, his voice low and gentle. "Consider it satisfying your longing for your departed friend." Lorelei bit her lip. After a moment's hesitation, she slowly reached out her hand. Her hand trembled slightly, as if carrying an immense weight. The instant her fingertips gently brushed against Perry's cheek, an electric current shot through her entire body. The texture, the contours, it felt as though she had returned to the time she spent with Aaron. Chapter 16, her fingers gently traced Perry's brow bone, moved slowly down his high-bridged nose, and lingered on his lips. Tears streamed uncontrollably from her eyes. She choked out, "Aaron, I miss you so much." In that moment, in her eyes, Perry seemed to become Aaron incarnate. All the suppressed longing poured out at once. Perry stood silently, allowing Lorelei's hand to roam his face. Watching her tear-streaked face, a pang of sympathy stirred within him. He had never imagined one person's longing for another could be so profound. After a long while, Lorelei slowly withdrew her hand, snapping back to reality as if waking from a dream. Realizing her lack of composure, she quickly stepped back, lowered her head, and spoke apologetically. "Mr. Fairfax, I'm sorry. I lost myself." Perry looked at her and sighed softly. "It's all right. I just wanted you to know, some things perhaps need to be faced, not constantly evaded." Lorelei nodded slightly, feeling both grateful and guilty towards Perry. She knew Perry was an intelligent man, and before him, she felt like an open book, utterly transparent. Lorelei's eyes reddened, her voice thick with apology and resolve. "Mr. Fairfax, I apologize for the trouble I've caused these past few days. I'll leave tomorrow." Perry's tone was calm. "Leave me, only to find someone who resembles him even more?" Lorelei was stunned by the question, her lips trembling slightly. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. She opened her mouth, but felt as if something was caught in her throat, unable to utter a single word. Just as Lorelei was trapped in awkward silence, Perry's voice sounded again. This time, his tone turned exceptionally gentle, as if carrying a magical power to soothe the soul. "Lorelei, stay. I'll teach you how to move on." Lorelei snapped her head up, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Meanwhile, since Lorelei's disappearance, Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft had been plunged into endless anxiety and self-reproach. They mobilized all their connections and resources, chasing down every possible lead, desperately searching for Lorelei in the vast sea of people. Days turned into weeks, each passing moment an agony for them. Harrison Sterling perpetually frowned, his desk piled high with files related to Lorelei. His eyes were bloodshot, yet he refused to stop searching. Julian Vance dropped all business engagements, personally traveling between cities, leaving no stone unturned in places potentially connected to Lorelei. Sebastian Croft stayed glued to his computer day and night, using his expert skills to excavate every possible piece of information. Finally, after countless disappointments, they received the news they had longed for. Lorelei's whereabouts had been found. She was in the capital city. Without a moment's hesitation, all three immediately packed their bags and rushed to the capital city. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft, hearts pounding with urgency, boarded their private jets without delay, speeding towards the capital city like lightning. As the planes soared through the sky, their minds had already flown to the Fairfax estate where Lorelei resided. Upon arrival in the capital city, the three men rushed straight to the Fairfax residence. Stepping into the luxurious mansion, they directly demanded to see Perry Fairfax, stating their intention to take Lorelei away. Shortly after, Perry Fairfax appeared leisurely. His expression was composed as his gaze swept over the three men one by one. "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Vance, Mr. Croft, to what do I owe the pleasure of this visit?" Chapter 17, Harrison Sterling took a deep breath, trying to calm his raging emotions, speaking in a tone that was as peaceful as possible yet retained its authority. "Mr. Fairfax, do you happen to employ a housekeeper named Lorelei Ashton? She is my wife, and I am here to take her home." Perry's expression remained neutral, a slight curve playing on his lips. "Mr. Sterling, as far as I know, when Lorelei applied for the housekeeper position here, she was single." Julian Vance, quick-tempered, could no longer hold back. "Fairfax, stop playing dumb. Getting involved in our affairs won't benefit anyone." Perry unhurriedly shifted his gaze to Julian Vance, his composure unwavering. "Mr. Vance, Lorelei is now part of the Fairfax household. As the head of the family, I am naturally responsible for her safety and well-being." Sebastian Croft stepped forward, his brow furrowed, his tone urgent. "Fairfax, we know we wronged Lorelei before. We came this time wanting to make amends. Please, do us the courtesy of letting us take her with us." Perry shook his head slightly, his eyes conveying an undeniable resolve. "I understand your intentions, gentlemen, but Lorelei has been settling into life here at the Fairfax estate these past few days. I cannot simply hand her over to you. If she were to be hurt again, I couldn't live with myself." Harrison Sterling's eyes narrowed, fixing on Perry. "Mr. Fairfax, your obstruction, could it be you have other intentions regarding Lorelei?" Perry met Harrison's gaze unflinchingly. "Mr. Sterling, I simply don't wish to see her hurt again. If you truly care for her, you should respect her wishes." The four men remained deadlocked, the atmosphere growing increasingly tense, invisible sparks seeming to fly in the air. And at this moment, Lorelei, the very center of this storm, was completely unaware of the fierce confrontation happening outside. Just as the tension reached its peak, threatening to ignite at any second, Lorelei's figure appeared. She walked slowly from the end of the hallway, her steps measured, her expression calm yet tinged with complexity. Lorelei walked to Perry Fairfax's side, looked up at him slightly, and said softly, "Mr. Fairfax, I'd like to talk to them." Perry remained silent for a long moment, emotions swirling in his deep eyes. Finally, he nodded slowly. "If you need anything, call my name." Lorelei paused, her heart stirred. He was the second person, after Aaron, to say that to her. She nodded, then watched as Perry turned and walked away. After searching for so many days, finally seeing the person they sought, the three men shed their usual arrogance and pride. They seemed like entirely different people. Harrison Sterling looked at Lorelei, his eyes filled with anxiety and self-blame, his tone sincere. "Lorelei, come back with us. We've investigated thoroughly. What happened in the art studio that day, Serafina deliberately framed you. She was jealous, so she orchestrated everything to make us misunderstand you." Julian Vance eagerly chimed in beside him. "Yes, Lorelei. We know we were terribly wrong. We believed her words so easily and didn't give you a chance to explain. Now that the truth is out, please don't stay here anymore. Come back with us. We'll make it up to you." Sebastian Croft's eyes were red-rimmed, his voice choked with emotion. "Lorelei, we were stupid, we were blind. That woman, Serafina, is ruthless. She'd stop at nothing to achieve her goals. Please forgive us this once, come back with us. We promise no one will ever hurt you again." Lorelei's expression was calm, her gaze cool as she looked at the three men before her. She spoke slowly, "Go back to continue being Serafina Thorne's substitute." Her voice was soft, yet it struck the hearts of the three men like a heavy hammer. Harrison Sterling's face contorted with regret. He quickly stepped forward, speaking urgently, "Lorelei, absolutely not. We see clearly now. We love you, not Serafina's shadow. When we couldn't find you during this time, we finally understood how important you are to us." Julian Vance also hurried to Lorelei's side, his eyes sincere and filled with self-reproach. "Lorelei, we were blind before, mistakenly treating you as a substitute. But now we know you are you, the one who captured our hearts, the one who haunts our thoughts. Our feelings for you have nothing to do with Seraphina Thorne. Sebastian Croft's eyes welled up. Lorelei, we truly know we were wrong. After you left, we realized your presence was everywhere in our lives and understood we had fallen in love with you long ago. Please give us another chance. We promise to love you properly. Chapter 18, looking at their remorseful expressions, Lorelei's demeanor remained as calm as still water, as if the emotional turmoil of the three men before her had nothing to do with her. After a long pause, she finally spoke slowly, her voice flat, devoid of any inflection. But I don't love you. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft froze as if petrified. Their eyes widened in disbelief, staring at Lorelei as if they had heard the most absurd thing in the world. Before they could recover, Lorelei continued, Actually, I used the three of you as substitutes too. Her tone remained calm, but her words detonated like heavy bombs, unleashing chaos in their hearts. My boyfriend died 3 years ago protecting me. I felt like I couldn't go on living, so I searched the world for people who looked like him. When I met you, Harrison Sterling, your eyes were the most like Aaron's. Julian Vance, the mole near your eyebrow was very similar to Aaron's. Sebastian Croft, your lips, they resembled Aaron's the most. Harrison Sterling's lips trembled slightly. He managed to ask, Are you telling the truth? Julian Vance's face turned ghastly pale. He stared intently at Lorelei, searching her expression for any sign of deception. How could you use us as substitutes? Sebastian Croft's eyes were red-rimmed, his voice choked with tears. Lorelei, you're lying to us, aren't you? This isn't real? Lorelei looked at them, her gaze unwavering. It is the truth. I approached you, spent time with you, all because you carried shadows of Aaron. I thought it could fill the void in my heart, but later I realized you are ultimately not him. I know this isn't fair to you, but back then I was trapped in my obsession, unable to pull myself out. Lorelei sighed softly. Now, I don't want to continue like this. I want to try to let go of the past and start over. So please stop looking for me. Harrison Sterling reacted first. Though shock still lingered on his face, he was more convinced Lorelei was merely angry. His eyes reddened, his voice thick with remorse and urgency. Lorelei, I know our previous despicable actions broke your heart. You're saying these things now because you're furious. But it was all our fault, every bit of it. We shouldn't have trusted Seraphina, shouldn't have been so cruel to you. Hit me, curse me, do whatever you want, but don't torture yourself and us with words like these. As he spoke, he raised his hand, seemingly wanting to gently touch Lorelei's face, but stopped midway, afraid of angering her further. Julian Vance quickly stepped in front of Lorelei, his brow deeply furrowed. Lorelei, we simply cannot believe what you're saying. These must be words spoken in anger. Our past together, all those days and nights, how could it be just because you saw us as substitutes? It must be our past actions that disappointed you so profoundly, making you use this method to wound us. We sincerely apologize. Please stop saying this. Give us a chance to make amends. Sebastian Croft spoke, almost pleading, Lorelei, I don't believe it. I really don't believe what you're saying. How could you see us as substitutes? You must still be angry about how we hurt you before, so you're saying this deliberately. I know I was wrong. Please don't be angry, okay? We'll listen to you from now on. We'll do anything you ask. Saying this, he couldn't resist gently tugging at the corner of Lorelei's sleeve, like a child afraid of being abandoned. Lorelei looked at the three anxious and remorseful men before her, a whirlwind of emotions inside her. She took a deep breath and forced herself to speak again, difficulty lacing her voice. I'm not speaking out of anger. This is the truth. After Aaron died, I lived in pain and obsession. Meeting you, seeing his shadow in you, that's why I got close. I know it wasn't fair to you, but at that time, I truly couldn't help it. You weren't good to me over the years either, so let's call it even. I don't blame you, and you shouldn't blame me. We don't owe each other anything. Seeing they still didn't believe her, she added one final sentence. If you don't believe me, you can investigate. This is the Fairfax estate, not my home. I cannot entertain guests. Please leave. With that, Lorelei turned and walked away directly, leaving the three men standing there, utterly thunderstruck. Chapter 19, after leaving, Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft immediately launched an investigation. They desperately wanted answers, yet dreaded knowing them. Upon learning the truth was exactly as Lorelei had described, their worlds collapsed. Harrison Sterling destroyed everything in his presidential suite. Julian Vance drank himself into a stupor. Sebastian Croft locked himself in his room for an entire day without emerging. When they came looking for Lorelei, they had braced themselves for her every POSSIBLE Chinese letter difficulty, making things hard. After all, they hadn't treated her well. They were prepared to do anything for her forgiveness. But they never, ever expected that. From the very beginning, Lorelei had never loved them. She had been using them as substitutes. This reality was more agonizing than if Lorelei had stabbed them herself. What hurt even more was the realization that, even knowing they were substitutes, they couldn't let go of Lorelei. Meanwhile, in the spacious, bright piano room of the Fairfax estate, sunlight streamed through the large French windows, falling onto the black and white keys and onto Lorelei and Perry Fairfax. Perry sat at one end of the piano bench, his long fingers resting lightly on the keys, patiently teaching Lorelei to play. Looking at Perry's face, so strikingly similar to Aaron's, Lorelei's thoughts drifted, her gaze becoming distant. Ever since Perry had firmly declared that day that he would help her walk out of the shadows of the past, a different kind of anticipation had kindled within her heart. In those lonely, long days, Aaron's departure felt like an inescapable nightmare, trapping her in an abyss of pain. Perry's appearance was like a faint but warm light piercing her darkness. She had thought Perry's words, "Help you walk out," meant he was willing to stay by her side, letting her look at his Aaron-like face daily, as if Aaron had never left, thus filling the immense void in her heart. However, reality differed from her imagination. From that day on, Perry took her out daily to experience various things. They strolled together in the park at dawn, feeling the first rays of sun warm their skin, listening to the crisp songs of birds. They went to bustling markets, weaving through crowds, sampling local snacks, experiencing the vibrant pulse of everyday life. They waited by the sea for sunset, watching the red sun slowly sink below the horizon, painting the sky orange and red. He even personally taught her to paint, taught her to play the piano, every movement patient and meticulous, as if sculpting a rare treasure. Lorelei didn't understand Perry's intentions. Late one night, Lorelei returned to her room. Just as she opened the door, a basin of water splashed onto her head. She slowly lifted her gaze and saw several Fairfax maids staring at her with contempt. "Some people are just shameless," one of the maids, slightly plump, said with pursed lips, arms crossed. "Clinging to the young master every day. Does she really think a sparrow can turn into a phoenix?" Another tall, thin maid chimed in, "Exactly, doesn't even look at her own status. Thinks she can latch onto the young master." Dream on cold water trickled down her cheeks, soaking her hair, which clung to her face miserably. She strode forward abruptly and slapped each of the maids across the face. Slap, the sound was crisp and loud. The maids staggered back, nearly falling, clutching their faces, eyes wide with shock and disbelief. They never expected the seemingly meek Lorelei to react so fiercely. Just as they were about to retaliate, their eyes caught sight of Perry Fairfax standing behind Lorelei. Their expressions changed instantly, like a magic trick. The faces that were moments ago filled with resentment and malice were now flooded with aggrieved tears. One maid stumbled towards Perry, dropped to her knees with a thud, and sobbed, "Young master, you must stand up for us. Housekeeper Ashton, for some reason, just started hitting and cursing us the moment she walked in. We feel so wronged." Seeing this, the other maids quickly followed suit, gathering around Perry, crying and complaining. "Yes, young master, we've always been respectful to housekeeper Ashton. We don't know how we offended her, but she just started hitting us. Look, our faces are swollen. Young master, we've worked diligently at the Fairfax estate for years without any mistakes. Yet today we suffered this injustice for no reason. You must give us justice." Chapter 20. Lorelei hadn't expected Perry to witness her hitting someone and felt momentarily flustered. She knew her motives for coming to the Fairfax estate weren't pure, so she had been treading carefully. But some trouble just insisted on finding its way to her. Seeing Perry looking at her with that face so like Aaron's, she felt extremely flustered, like a child caught misbehaving. She subconsciously started to apologize. "I'm sorry, to her surprise, Perry smiled gently. "Lorelei, you did well." Hearing this, the maids stared at Perry in disbelief, unable to trust their ears. Perry spoke softly, "These past few days you've been suppressing your emotions. You wouldn't laugh, wouldn't cry. Back in Hong Kong, did you also not fight back when you were bullied? But today, you did very well. Like a person. A living, breathing person. Hearing this, Lorelei's heart jolted violently. Before she could say anything, Perry gently prompted her, "You are the housekeeper. These maids bullied you and twisted the truth. What do you think should be done?" Lorelei paused, taking a moment before responding, "Fire them." Perry smiled gently. "All right, we'll do as you say. Good night." With that, he turned and left. After he departed, the maids realized their fate and immediately started begging. "Miss Ashton, we were wrong, please. Be magnanimous and forgive us this once. We all have families to support. This job is so important to us." One maid started banging her head on the floor, the sound echoing clearly in the quiet hallway. "Yes, Miss Ashton, we were blinded by greed just now. We shouldn't have said those awful things. Please don't lower yourself to our level." The other maids followed suit, either kneeling and kowtowing or clutching at Lorelei's clothes, pleading desperately. However, Lorelei just watched them quietly. "When you were slandering me just now, did you ever consider this outcome?" Lorelei's voice was soft but held an undeniable firmness. "When I was being framed and bullied by you, I was helpless too, but you showed no mercy." She turned away, refusing to look at them anymore, her tone cold. "Pack your things and leave the Fairfax estate." With that, Lorelei walked back into her room without a backward glance and closed the door. Outside, the maids' cries gradually subsided, followed by the sound of footsteps fading into the distance. Leaning against the door, Lorelei felt a mix of emotions. Before this, when faced with others' malice, she had always endured silently, burying the hurt and pain deep inside. Previously, Aaron had always protected her. After Aaron was gone, facing pain and hardship, she often chose silence, hoping in a self-destructive way that Aaron might reappear, longing to see him just one more time. But Aaron didn't reappear, and she developed the habit of remaining silent no matter how much pain she endured. But today, Perry had gently guided her, telling her she wasn't wrong. It turned out that when facing bullies, she could fight back alone and do it well. That night, Lorelei slept soundly. No longer relying on sleeping pills, she could finally rest peacefully. Perry left for the office early in the morning. While she was trimming flowers, she saw the familiar three men again. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, Sebastian Croft. They stood at the entrance to the garden, looking slightly weary. Harrison stood tall, hands in his pockets, lips pressed tightly together, his usual cold expression marred by a slight frown, betraying his inner turmoil. Julian Vance's gaze was locked on Lorelei, his eyes filled with complex emotions, as if he had 1,000 words to say. Sebastian Croft kept his head slightly bowed, shifting his feet restlessly, occasionally stealing glances at Lorelei. Lorelei's pruning shears paused, a flicker of surprise and defensiveness in her eyes. She hadn't expected them to reappear here after learning the truth. After a brief silence, the garden atmosphere became subtly tense, as if the very air had frozen. Chapter 21. Fine, they're probably here to cause trouble. After all, how could three proud, privileged men tolerate being used as substitutes? Lorelei braced herself for their accusations, ready to face their anger. Unexpectedly, they walked towards her together, their eyes holding not fury but resignation. Harrison Sterling pressed his lips together, his eyes a complex mix of longing and a hint of determination. He broke the silence first, his voice somewhat strained but incredibly firm. "Lorelei, as long as you're willing to come back with us, we are willing to be his substitutes." Julian Vance looked at Lorelei intently, nodding in agreement. "That's right. We know your feelings for that man are unforgettable. As long as you agree to stay by our side, we are willing to be these substitutes." Sebastian Croft grasped her hand. "Lorelei, come back to us. We can play any role you need as long as it makes you happy." Lorelei's eyes widened in disbelief, staring at the three men, her mind reeling. She never imagined they would make such a decision. "Do you know what you're saying?" She found it utterly inconceivable that these three once incredibly proud men would willingly debase themselves into becoming substitutes. Harrison Sterling tilted his head slightly, meeting Lorelei's gaze steadily, his voice low but powerful. "Of course we know." He paused, a flicker of helplessness and pain crossing his eyes. "But besides this, what other choice do we have?" Julian Vance's expression was grave, his eyes filled with deep affection and obsession. Lorelei, we tried to let go, tried to convince ourselves to accept that someone else holds your heart, but we simply can't. He sighed softly, a touch of bitterness in his voice. Rather than lose you completely, we'd rather stay by your side like this. Sebastian Croft's eyes reddened, tears welling up. Yes, Lorelei. As long as I can be with you, even as a substitute, I'm willing. Lorelei felt the world had turned upside down, everything defied her understanding and imagination. After a long moment, she found her voice. But I am not willing. Hearing this, the three men instantly grew anxious. Harrison Sterling's brow furrowed tightly, his eyes filled with urgency and confusion. He blurted out, "Weren't you also looking for a substitute when you came to Perry Fairfax's side?" Julian Vance chimed in, "Exactly. If you can accept Perry Fairfax as that man's substitute, why can't you accept us?" Sebastian Croft sounded incredulous, his tone laced with anger. "Lorelei, how are we inferior to Perry Fairfax? Why are you willing to give him a chance, but not us?" Caught off guard by their barrage of questions, Lorelei felt flustered, but she managed to steady herself, taking a deep breath. "You don't understand. It's not like that between Perry and me. When I first came to Perry's side, it was indeed because his face resembled Aaron's. But later, I gradually understood that he wants to help me move on, not become a substitute." Hearing this, jealousy coiled around the three men's hearts like rampant vines, consuming their rationality. Harrison Sterling's eyes turned dark and ominous. He stared intently at Lorelei, grinding his teeth. "Since you're unwilling to come with us, then I'll just take action." Although Julian Vance frowned, hesitating visibly, driven by the dual forces of jealousy and unwillingness to let go, he tacitly agreed with Harrison's decision. Sebastian Croft was completely panicked, blindly following their lead, muttering constantly, "Can't let her stay here, can't?" Before Lorelei could react, they surged forward. Harrison's powerful arms clamped down on Lorelei's shoulders, while Julian quickly produced a prepared rope, binding her hands behind her back. Lorelei struggled desperately, shouting, "Are you insane? Let me go," however. The three men had lost all reason, deaf to her cries. Sebastian Croft urged anxiously from the side. Quickly, before anyone sees, they half-carried, half-dragged Lorelei towards the helipad. Lorelei kicked her feet wildly, trying to break free, but it was all futile. Chapter 22, once aboard the helicopter, Lorelei completely lost control. She thrashed wildly, screaming, her voice sharp with anger and fear. "You lunatics, let me go, you have no right to do this," seeing Lorelei like this. A flicker of pity crossed Harrison Sterling's heart, but jealousy and obsession quickly regained dominance. He took a small vial from his pocket containing an unknown spray. He slowly approached Lorelei, trying to soothe her. "Lorelei, stop struggling. You're only making it harder on yourself." Lorelei shook her head frantically, shrinking back, trying to evade Harrison's approach. "Don't come near me, stay away," however. Harrison moved swiftly, lightly spraying the contents towards Lorelei's face. Lorelei smelled a pungent odor invade her nostrils. Instantly, her head felt heavy, her consciousness blurring. Harrison caught the gradually collapsing Lorelei, murmuring softly, "Sleep now. Everything will be all right when you wake up. We'll treat you well." Lorelei tried to resist but powerlessly closed her eyes, her body slumping limply into Harrison's arms. An unknown amount of time passed before Lorelei slowly regained consciousness. Her head felt groggy. As soon as she opened her eyes, the familiar ceiling came into view, instantly jolting her awake. Looking around, she realized she was lying in the bedroom of the familiar villa in Hong Kong. Everything in the room was exactly as she had left it, the curtain patterns, the furniture arrangement, every detail triggering painful memories. She sat up abruptly, only then realizing the ropes were still tightly bound around her, severely restricting her movement. Just then, the bedroom door opened slowly, and Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft entered one by one. Harrison held a tray bearing an exquisite breakfast, Lorelei's favorite blueberry pancakes and hot milk. He wore an ingratiating smile, speaking softly, "Lorelei, you're awake. You must be hungry. Have something to eat." Julian Vance held a bouquet of vibrant roses, walking to the bedside, speaking gently, "Lorelei, these are your favorite roses. I hope they brighten your mood a little." Sebastian Croft held a gift box, his eyes red as if he had just been crying. "Lorelei, I bought you a gift. See if you like it." The harshness and madness were gone from their faces, replaced by cautiousness and infinite tenderness. as if they weren't the ones who had forcibly abducted her just moments ago. Lorelei glared at them furiously, shouting, "What exactly do you want? Kidnapping me, locking me up here, is this what you call treating me well?" Harrison placed the tray on the nearby table, walked to the bedside, knelt down, looked into Lorelei's eyes, and spoke gently. "Lorelei, we know this was wrong, but we honestly didn't know what else to do. We were too afraid of losing you, so we resorted to this." Julian Vance added softly, "Lorelei, we promise, we will treat you well from now on. We won't let you suffer any grievances." Sebastian Croft placed the gift box on the bedside table and took Lorelei's hand. "Lorelei, please forgive us. We really can't live without you." Lorelei forcefully yanked her hand away. "Let me go, I want to leave this place." Harrison gently took Lorelei's hand again. "Lorelei, as long as you agree to stay with us, we'll untie the ropes. We just want you to give us a chance, let us prove our love for you." Julian Vance held out the roses to Lorelei. "Lorelei, please accept these flowers as a chance for us to start over." Sebastian Croft looked at Lorelei pitifully. "Lorelei, please, don't leave us." Lorelei looked at the three men before her, feeling a mixture of anger and hatred. She knew she was trapped in a difficult situation, and their obsessive love now felt more like a heavy chain. Chapter 23. In the following days, Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft seemed to pour all their energy into Lorelei, launching an almost frantic campaign to win her favor. At dawn, before the first sunlight fully pierced the curtains, Sebastian Croft would tiptoe into the kitchen to meticulously prepare Lorelei's breakfast. He focused intently on the frying eggs, carefully flipping them, terrified of ruining this dish she might potentially enjoy. Meanwhile, Harrison Sterling would be in the garden selecting the freshest, most vibrant flowers, arranging them in exquisite vases, placing them where Lorelei was sure to see them. Julian Vance would already be contacting the world's most renowned designers, commissioning custom-made clothes in various styles for Lorelei, hoping only for a flicker of a smile from her. At lunchtime, the three would gather around Lorelei, asking her preferences, serving her food. Harrison Sterling would carefully remove fish bones, placing the tender meat in Lorelei's bowl. Julian Vance would recount various amusing anecdotes, trying to cheer her up. Sebastian Croft would nervously watch Lorelei's expression, immediately asking if the food wasn't to her liking at the slightest frown. In the evenings, they would accompany Lorelei for walks, even if she remained silent. Under the moonlight, their shadows stretched long. Harrison would gently drape a thin shawl over her shoulders, worried she might get cold. Julian Vance would point at the stars, joking lightly about wishing he could pluck them down for her. Sebastian Croft would follow closely behind her, as if terrified she would vanish if he looked away for a second. They took her to the most luxurious shopping malls, letting her choose anything she desired. They booked entire amusement parks for her, allowing her to relive childhood joys. They hired top-tier orchestras to perform private concerts just for her. They stopped just short of plucking the stars from the sky for her, yet Lorelei remained unmoved. She stayed silent, her eyes filled with coldness and distance. Faced with their relentless attention, she responded only faintly or ignored them completely. Until they could no longer bear her indifference, they planned a grand wedding, wanting to make her their beautiful bride. After all, they hadn't held a wedding ceremony before. On the wedding day, Lorelei was forcibly brought to the venue, tied up. She struggled desperately, eyes filled with fury and despair, shouting constantly, "Let me go, I won't marry you," but her resistance was futile against the three men's insistence. Just as the wedding was about to begin and Lorelei felt utterly hopeless, a disheveled figure burst into the hall. It was Serafina Thorne. Her hair was messy, her eyes wild. A circle of explosives was strapped around her body, causing the guests to gasp in horror. Serafina looked at Lorelei bound on the stage, then at the three men, screaming hysterically, "None of you will get away with this. Why does she get your love? How am I inferior to her?" Her voice was shrill and piercing, echoing through the hall. Harrison Sterling's face changed. He immediately stepped forward, trying to calm Serafina. "Serafina, calm down, don't be impulsive," but Serafina laughed maniacally. "Calm down. After what you've done to me, how can I calm down today? Either she dies, or we all die here." As she spoke, her hand tightened on the detonator, her eyes filled with grim determination. Lorelei looked at Serafina, fear gripping her heart, but she forced herself to remain composed. "Serafina, don't do anything foolish. This won't solve anything. Serafina glared viciously at Lorelei. Shut up, it's all because of you that I lost everything. Just as Serafina screamed almost deliriously, resolutely pressing the ignition device, lighting the fuse, time seemed to freeze. The sizzling fuse was like death's countdown, each second wrenching at everyone's hearts. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft, almost simultaneously, without hesitation, lunged towards Lorelei. Their eyes held only one unwavering thought: protect Lorelei. Chapter 24. Harrison Sterling, swift as lightning, was the first to shield Lorelei's upper body with his own tall frame, his arms wrapped around her like steel, as if building an indestructible barrier. Julian Vance followed closely, throwing himself in front of Lorelei, blocking her side with his body. His eyes showed sheer determination, utterly fearless of the impending blast. Sebastian Croft, disregarding everything, threw himself onto Lorelei from behind, enveloping her completely in his embrace, muttering constantly, "Lorelei, don't be afraid, we're here." In an instant, the explosives detonated. A powerful shockwave carrying flames and debris swept outwards like a tidal wave. Blinding light engulfed everything. The entire hall descended into chaos and terror. Guests' screams and cries mingled with the sound of shattering debris. After the explosion, thick smoke filled the air. The scene was one of utter devastation. The hall's walls were blown open, the magnificent decorations reduced to rubble, and at the center of the wreckage, Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft lay tightly shielding Lorelei. Their bodies were battered and bruised by the blast's impact, blood continuously seeping from their wounds, staining the ground red. Lorelei, tightly protected in the middle, stared in shock. She felt the immense sacrifice the three men had made for her, a whirlwind of complex emotions churning within. She had once thought their obsession was purely possessive, but she never imagined they would risk their lives to protect her. But before she could process it further, she lost consciousness completely. When she woke again, she found herself back at the Fairfax estate. She slowly sat up, looking around. Everything in the room was peaceful and serene, as if the life and death crisis had been just a nightmare. However, the faint ache in her body reminded her that it had all been real. Just then, the door opened gently, and Perry Fairfax walked in. Seeing Lorelei awake, a flicker of joy crossed his eyes. "You're awake," Lorelei paused. "How did I get here?" "And them," Perry spoke softly. "Serafina Thorne was sent to prison, sentenced to life. Harrison Sterling, Julian Vance, and Sebastian Croft were seriously injured, but they have regained consciousness. However, due to the severity of the blast, they all suffered different degrees of permanent injury. Harrison Sterling's legs were severely damaged. He can no longer stand or walk. Julian Vance's eyes were injured. He will be blind from now on. Sebastian Croft's ears were damaged by the explosion. He will be deaf from now on. Lorelei, from now on, they won't bother you again." Hearing this, Lorelei's heart clenched violently. 1,000 complex emotions surged within her, leaving her wanting to speak, yet unable to form words. In the end, she simply murmured, "Oh," and got out of bed, preparing to resume her duties as housekeeper. But Perry caught her hand. "Lorelei, starting today, you are leaving the Fairfax estate." Lorelei froze. "Leave? Where can I go?" Perry smiled gently. "You no longer need to find substitutes to escape your pain. The world is vast. Didn't you and your boyfriend used to dream of traveling the world together? Now that he can no longer see, you can take him, see it together for him." Translator's note. Perry seems to be speaking metaphorically here, encouraging her to live out the dream for Aaron, not literally take the injured Julian. Hearing this, a glimmer of hope sparked within Lorelei. Yes, Aaron's greatest dream used to be traveling the world with her. At this thought, hope seemed to reawaken in her heart. She looked at Perry. Solemnly, she said, "Perry, thank you." Perry still smiled gently. "Thank me for what? I didn't do anything. Your luggage has already been packed. Go on now." Lorelei smiled, got out of bed, thanked him again, and turned to leave. Reaching the door, she waved with a bright smile, saying cheerfully, "Perry, goodbye." Perry nodded gently. "Goodbye." He watched the girl's back recede into the distance, heading towards her future. Only then did the butler, Mr. Finchley, step forward, sighing, "Young master, why didn't you tell Miss Ashton? That you were classmates, that you've been secretly in love with her since middle school?" To help her escape those 3 men, you even subtly altered your appearance to resemble Aaron, just so she would come to you willingly. She's lost her love. If you had just spoken up, she surely would have stayed. You've done so much for her, yet said nothing. Now that she's gone, to the ends of the earth, when will you ever see her again? Perry looked towards the spot where her figure had long since vanished, a faint smile playing on his lips. Because I love her, and she is free.